Okay.
Okay, we're live.
Good evening. Welcome to the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. It's April 22nd. The time is 6:31. And let's start out by introducing ourselves. We'll do it from things as I see, from my perspective. Lisa, go first.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Raymond. I'm the Interim Assistant Superintendent for Business.
I'm David Warner. I'm a member of the board and the chair of this committee. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Ashley Moore. I'm the district treasurer.
Laser?
Laser alert, network administrator.
Fred?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Fred Seba with BBS Architects and Engineers.
Ashley?
Good thing I stopped chewing. Good evening, everyone. Ashley Pineda, board trustee, and currently eating my dinner. Don't mind me.
Very good. Jim?
Jim Wadig, project architect, BBS Architects.
Steve?
Steve Morton, parent of two kids at Woodland Middle High School.
Wow, we're getting old. Mike?
Michael Falcone, I'm the Director of Facilities and Operations.
Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica Muldoon. I'm a parent. I'm also eating dinner.
Yes, you're not alone. Chris?
Chris Valenge, parent of two at Woodlands, and I apologize, my kids are using the computer for class. Thank you.
And somebody who's labeled Katie and John.
Hi, it's Katie McGee.
Very good.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Carol?
Hi, Carol Allen, community member.
Tanya?
Sorry, I'm slow on the draw today. Tanya Dragic, trustee.
Very good. Okay, so gang's all here. Maybe a few people will join later, but it's a good start. So now let's take a look at the agenda. I think we're going to have to look at the meeting notes for the last meeting, because this is more of a regular meeting now. So let me see if I can bring things up on my Google Drive here. Give me a minute. Okay, my drive. And Laser, you're going to have to allow me to share my screen.
Should be all set.
Okay, so let me, if I can go back here and share screen. And I think we want this guy. Let's see, is there a way of making it a little larger, or is that it?
You could zoom in. What are you using? Is that Chrome?
No, this is a Mac.
Mac. Was it file on a view and then zoom? There's a view tab at the top.
It's at the bottom right now. It says page 104. There's a plus there.
Oh, there it is.
That'll work better.
There we go.
All right, can people see now?
Yes. That's
Okay,
better.
so this is way back on the March 11th meeting. We stopped having meetings quite as often here, and now that we've had our recommendation. So we'll go over it, and anybody who sees anything that needs to be amended, let me know. This was Heather's draft was about 6 pages long. I tried to get it down to 3 and I managed 4. So there are the attendees, and we discussed, I think, 3 major things. And the first is the ECP main building temporary ventilation fixes and related heating and electrical work. That's the stuff that needs to be done in order for the ECP main building to open up next fall, when we anticipate that everybody will be back. So then there won't be a room in Highview anymore. So then we had to really work at that. And there's Fred Seba's field trip to the ECP main building, and the things that he found there that had to be done for the heating systems, heating fixes, and there's the short-term stuff, and then there's the slightly longer-term stuff, or things to do if the heating system improvements aren't quite good enough for short term. And there's a listing there. And then there were some other items beyond the heating system itself. We know that the furnace was okay, but the pumping system going to and from it wasn't functioning properly. And then he talked about the ceiling registers in the administration offices. He talked about the sealing up the windows and replacing the balances. So if you open a window, or if you can open a window, you can get open and it'll stay open and won't fall on you. Insulating space above the sheetrock, that was an item that might possibly end up as part of the energy performance contract. We'll see if we need it. The hot water baseboard, there were a couple of places to put additional electric heaters in the back. Doing something about keeping water away from the outside of the building near the nurse's office and making sure there's no mold. The exterminator stuff is happening right now in terms of cleaning things out. Well, Mike Falcone will go over things in just a minute here as to what we're doing now. Things that had to do with making the hot water heater either not too hot for the sink, either turning it down or fixing it so that you can get a proper water temperature. And then second major thing, our schedule and financial status relative to the project. So Lisa went to town. So Lisa, you take a look at the numbers here, especially the second bullet. Is there anything there that has changed? Is there something we thought we had extra money coming back and instead it was an overrun or anything like that in bullet 2 there?
I don't believe so.
Good.
Everything looks pretty in line.
Okay, good. And then after you kind of gave us a rundown of all of the different piles of money, where it is and where we need to put it, then we had a couple of discussion topics. We had a long debate about whether to spend the $500,000 on mechanical ventilation for the ECP main as part of phase 1. And the conclusion was, yes, let's do it. We don't know if phase 2 bond with an ECP wing in it will pass. If it doesn't, you certainly want the permanent mechanical ventilation in the building. And even if it does pass, it'll be a couple of years before the kids would go to wherever the new wing is. And then you would have another use for the building and you still want to have the mechanical ventilation. So we said, yes, keep it in, and we did. Then ECP work, there were cautions, get it going as soon as possible, look for every possible source of aid. Of course, since then, the American Recovery Act has come back. And so we have, I guess we're going to have more sources of aid, and that will play into the future. Woodlands Middle High School, security vestibule and wheelchair ramp. The long and the short was that we were going to, a new ramp is not a repair, so you can't use the repair reserve fund for it, but you can use capital project money for it. If you do this, the vestibule uses smart school money, but the ramp can't come out of smart school money. Therefore, we have to have it as a capital project from somewhere, and we have to move money around for that. We talked about different options for an ECP wing. The primary one everybody pushes for is Lee F. Jackson. There's also a possibility of just making the main building larger, or even doing something with the administration building. So we kind of pledged that we'll cost it out and look at the academic and administrative advantages as well as cost. We had been concerned that we might have to change phase 1 to pay for the short-term ECP ventilation fixes, but we don't have to. Lisa found the money. That's great. Then the final thing was, what are our recommendations going to be to the board? One was to schedule a public hearing. We recommended April 6th. We ended up having it a little bit later, but it's done now. And the second was to authorize a superintendent or a designee for a request for proposal for an energy performance contract. So I think the board actually passes a resolution on that when we get an energy performance contract. So we've forwarded that on to the board, and they've responded, I think, in a fairly positive manner. So all is well and wisely put. Anybody see anything in these minutes that needs to change?
No.
Do I hear a motion to adopt these minutes as
So
presented?
moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Could you clarify, please, are we doing a request for proposals for the energy performance contract?
Lisa?
Yes, that was my understanding, that we are going to work with Fred and Jim to get that rolling and get that out there.
Thank you.
That
And,
also, though, I believe, Mike and I were talking about it today, actually, and Fred and Jim, if you want to weigh in, I believe, though, that the energy performance contract could be tied in with some of the American Rescue money that the district is receiving, or it could be part of a bigger project with all of that.
Yeah, typically we see districts, I mean, the EPC is a different funding source, but you can get work done through the EPC and then get other work done through that federal funding that comes. So it kind of leverages that federal funding money and allows you to get even that much more work done.
Right.
Especially with all the controls that need to be done in this district. During my meeting, when I found that out, I said, okay, maybe we can couple it together, or I'm not sure how it works, but we can use it on all controls. And Day Automation was the one actually you recommended that was doing the seminar about this.
Right. It's very important for everybody to remember when we're trying to decide and we meet as committees, if there's going to be a different committee to address how to use the American Rescue money and the that other emergency money, that those are monies that aren't going to recur every year. So you really want to use that money for what we call one-time hits. So it could be for building or energy performance contract, something that isn't going to recur every year that the budget is going to have to sustain.
So I understand so the EPC, like the architect said earlier, is a different funding source. I understand the need to bundle it with other projects. So when we have our meeting about phase 2, which we should start planning soon. Mike, but you said that could be bundled in with the controls, which is actually part of phase 1, right?
Yes, you can use it for controls because with this, the way it's written, you can use it for anything dealing with ventilation in your buildings. And what do we need? Ventilations. And most of our ventilations are controlled by, or have controls to it. So this is one of the things I want to talk to BBS about it, and how do we use the funds? Because tell me if I'm wrong, Fred, is that the EPC also can do controls, might not do as much, but if you could do, let's say 50% on EPC, 50% with the funding.
But we've just put we've just put the controls in the monies that were just moved for the repair reserve, I believe, some of them. But I know we also split controls between, or the ventilation issues between phase 1, and then we left some of the bigger spaces for phase 2. I believe the auditorium at Woodlands and another big area. I can't remember right now. I have to find the paper. So we've kind of got it split. So maybe if we have a separate meeting about that money, would it be possible to understand what the rules are? Like, how does a certain percentage need to go to building ventilation issues versus other items? And is that money different than the part that goes to social, emotional, and academic supports, or is that all bundled together?
I think at least 20% of the base aid has to go towards learning loss.
Okay.
So the summer school stuff is going to be a percentage. Now, I expected the education side folks to come through and make a pass and figure out what they need and how many teachers they can use, and whether it can be phased over a maximum of 3 years. It has to be done in a year. I think it's 3. And then after they've taken their pass, anything that's left is fair game. So,
and then
so
that's
where I am. And that phase 1, if I remember correctly, that you've got a long lead time on you manufacturing those ventilation units for RJ Bailey. So I was actually hoping that we could take some, if they get the application process together, we could take some money that's going to that $3 million and partially offset that, and then use some of that money for other capital projects.
Right, because
So I don't know what the timing is on that, but that's my hope.
Right, there's no reason why phase 2 needs to wait a year or whatever. It can begin in the fall, hopefully, if that money's available. Okay, sorry, thank you.
All right. All right, any other questions? Okay, so now we move on to facility status. There are two major portions of the facility status. One is sprinting towards full-time in-person instruction. And then the second is going to be the status of the facilities as they've been going on, and that's the next page of the agenda after this. So, Mr. Falcone, you want to tell us about what we're doing for preparing for full-time in-person instruction? I can't hear you.
You're muted, Michael.
I apologize. Okay. Friday and Saturday, I'm going to have my staff in to bring all your desks to 3 foot spacing. We have desk shields, so we're going to be installing the desk shields at the same time. And we should be able to, I've been working with the principals. We have it down to where we can accommodate all the kids that are coming back, even though they have a deadline of tonight. As of now, we have no issues.
Do you know how many elementary students are coming back?
The only one that I know is Patricia has, I think, the most. Jesus, I forgot exactly how much it was.
Okay, well, I mean, the deadline was until 5 p.m. So
yeah.
So we'll be able to get those numbers soon. Okay, so to back up a little bit, in case I think everybody knows as much as I do, but basically the CDC came out allowing elementary school students to be within 3 feet of each other if they're in the same cohort, but they have to maintain 6 feet between cohorts and 6 feet away from adults, and the adults have to be 6 feet apart from each other. Also, if they're eating lunch or exercising, they have to be 6 feet apart. If they're walking through the hallways, they're not in their cohort, because you could run into somebody that's not from your class. So they're supposed to stay 6 feet apart there too. But inside the class, meaning you can fit more desks in, it's 3 feet by 3 feet. That's the elementary school level. Then the secondary school level, for us, I guess that's Woodlands Middle School. The 6 feet distance stays the same. So short term, the immediately by starting next week is parents have signed up for their kids to come back for the changeover, having the option, because not everybody's doing it, but having the option of having full-time in-person instruction. Then a week after that, at least in theory, the high school will have the same, the middle and high school will have the same thing, except the 6 feet distance isn't relaxed. So that's a tougher road to hoe if too many people want it. So I'm not sure how the planning has gone for that. Do we know anything yet, Mike?
I was speaking to Matt today. Let's just say his numbers are not really coming in, because you're supposed to respond whether you're coming back or you're staying, okay? And he's had a very low number, so he hasn't had any responses, very little responses.
Okay, so we're going to have more more effort on that before we know what's going to
happen. Yeah, we have to leave the numbers to the principals, okay? You'll find out from the principals on what's going on.
And if the numbers are high, what are the plans for using spaces to allow this to work?
You're not gonna, this is an opinion, not gonna make it work in the high school. Okay. It's not gonna happen. I walked around with Matt Smith, and I ask, how many kids are in this class? How many kids are in this? What's your maximum? And when he's telling me 26, 27, that can't happen.
Yeah. Are we using the gym for classrooms now?
As of now, we're not at the gym yet. I don't know what they're planning on doing, so I can't speak for the principals. They have a lot on their plate.
I also just want to point out that if our rates of transmission lower, that technically elementary, middle, and high school can use a physical distance of 3 feet. if we're in a low or moderate risk of transition. It's only when we are, as we are now, in a high rate that we have to have 6 feet. So I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so we'll keep you posted on that. So is there anything else that you mentioned the desk shields, you mentioned moving the desks. You think you're on time to be able to get the elementary schools to happen by Monday?
We're going to make it.
You're gonna
Whether we
make
stay there late, we're going, it's going to happen.
Okay. Okay, very good. All right, then, moving on to the second part. So I have a few pictures, little slides that I'll show you after you do this. Let's go through the word bullets first, and then and just go facility by facility. And this is what I think you told me. And if I got it wrong, I got it wrong. But have at it. Start with ECP.
Okay, ECP right now, we have, we've been covering up, the holes in the front right now of the building. They'll be working towards the sides. We found where the raccoon came in because he was trying to get out of that same hole. Yes, we caught a raccoon and 4 babies. We've also caught numerous of squirrels. Until we button up that building, all the animals will stay out. But the carpenter's been working on it. They've been also painting the outside because it definitely needs a coating of paint. Windows, yes, I did talk to a window repair company. None of them are on contract. So I did bring the carpenter and I said to the carpenter, I said, give me a price on new windows that are there. A lot of them, the locks are broken, the balances. So he's going to get us a price on the windows. Right now, BBS is working on the ventilations and what he recommends and the heating system.
And how goes that, Fred?
Oh, we have the backgrounds all drawn. I don't know, Carl Weber, who's the head of our mechanical engineering department, was trying to schedule a site visit. I don't know if he got up there.
No, we're going to meet tomorrow.
He's coming tomorrow. Okay.
Our paths did not cross, and
Okay.
I've been tied up on a lot of things. So when I returned his phone calls, it was phone tag, but we got it together. He's going to be there first thing tomorrow morning. I'll be walking the building with him.
Okay. So he has seen the photos that I took from my site visit when I was up there. He helped me come up with the estimates and the work scope, all of that. So he's very familiar with the job. We were drawing the background of the building from the floor plans that we had. So he's been working on that. So he's going to go up and do his field work tomorrow. So within, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks, we should have a scope of work that we can get to Michael and then talk about bringing some contractors in and get some pricing on that.
Right.
Very good. Leah Jackson.
Leah Jackson, they started the new playground 10 days ago. Someone was around COVID. They were all on quarantine. So their 10 days is up, I think, in tomorrow, or 12 days up tomorrow. So they're going to be starting Monday back on the playground. Highview School, we have the new playground. I'm not sure if you saw all the pictures. That went well. My staff worked extremely well together because we do the mulch. We end up bringing all the mulch into the playground area. We also put the ground felt. So that's there. RJ Bailey, the gym ventilation is fixed. Okay, they're running. The steam pipe leak that we had that buckled the floor in 102, I believe, that was repaired. We had no asbestos that leaked. It was inside the wall. And this is some of the people, they said, oh my God, we have asbestos. The asbestos was inside the wall. So, and we knew it. We did background checks before. We opened up the wall. They did the repair. They ended up patching the wall. We had, test after the repair before they, broke down. Everything came out clear. They fixed that. the new floor upstairs in 102 came out amazing. We had another leak that was in 103. That one didn't have any asbestos around the pipe. It must have been leaking all winter long and going underneath the floor that made the floor buckle. But we have 2 brand new floors that looks amazing. The masonry that was finished last month. No, 2 months ago. Believe it or not, with the new lentils that we've been saying that he put in, this last rainfall, I didn't get any calls. So you know what? So far, yes, knock on wood. The fence, we discussed the fence that I double the fence behind basketball hoops. That's about 16 feet tall. But at the same time, I ended up putting new fencing, and my staff, Rich McLean, has done an amazing job. So is Sammy. They not only removed the fence, but they also cleared all the brush, put wood chips down. It's coming together extremely well. I had the fence company over there to complete the fencing that we took down. They've asked several times to enclose the area, because right now there was a fence going up towards the driveway. The dumps were there, people can run in and out. So that is now enclosed. Okay. The old fence now meets the other, the new fence meets the other new fence that I put in, 3 years ago, towards the parking lot. That's all coming together extremely well. You're saying required landscape buffer for adjacent property car wash. I know they have to take care of what was on their permit. So I have nothing to say about that.
I will
guess
tell you.
what's on here is the evergreens. I'm just going to tell you personal experience because I took a picture and I sent it to David.
I'm going to show it.
You're going to show it. Thule Giants are a great buffer. Okay. First of all, it makes a nice hedge. They grow about 20 feet high, 18 feet high. They come in thick. They grow 3 to 5 feet a year. It was just something that I talked to David about. It's worth asking for them to plant some of those. That is, like I said, that's a true buffer, and you won't see the car wash at all.
And I want to tell you that Garrett Duquesne of Greenburgh town with the planning commission, all that stuff. Garrett Duquesne is willing to come and meet with anybody who wants to as a school official from the district on the 29th, April 29th at 5 p.m. He's available. So that offer is out there. It was going to be sooner, but he had a scheduling conflict. Tanya, you have your hand up.
I do. I actually had 2 questions for Mike. So the first question was regarding the masonry and brick pointing. Well, it could be for Mike, but it could be for the architects. To what extent does the work that is being described here really resolve all of our facade issues with RJ Bailey, and what else remains to be done?
Okay. And the mason that's been working on there kept on saying, you need to put this out to bid. You need to repoint the whole building. I said, I understand it. I know it. The architects know it. But I did know, and if you remember during the bond, and we walked through that building, and I pointed out the lentils. When you're in the classrooms and you see the water coming basically above the windows, okay, I knew some of it was coming through the lentils. The lentils were rotted out. I had pictures of all the rotted lentils. So those are the parts that we were tackling first. And even though he was jumping, I needed to take care of the biggest cracks. I needed to repair anything that we knew or we figured that the water was coming through. Okay. And knock on wood, they did a great job. But you do need some major work on the exterior of that building.
I understand that. So I guess so you're saying that this is just kind of a phase one to stop the bleeding, but there is still a lot left to do in terms
Yes.
of the facade work. Okay. All right.
And don't get me wrong, this guy did an amazing job and great work. I was there on Saturdays when he was there. Okay. I was up on the lift with him. This was I was very impressed with this guy. Never dealt with him before. He did an amazing job. So if you ever continue to do the exterior, you're not going to do what he fixed.
Okay. So then my second question was regarding this landscape buffer. Who's paying for this? Who's planting this? I'm still not clear, like who's responsible for what? I mean, clearly we need it, but who's doing the work?
No, they have on their plans already. The car wash people. They need to replant certain shrubs. That was already approved. It was just a conversation David and I had. I said, wow, it would have been nice if they could have planted Thule giants. That's all. And let me just add something, because I do drive over to that side of the parking lot. I do constantly watch their progression, and they did start up the vacuum cleaners, and I'm very impressed. They are very quiet. So when you go there, because I know they invited us to go over there, you're going to realize that the vacuum cleaners are really not that loud at all whatsoever. But when you don't see something, you won't hear it. And that's just a thought of mine. That's an opinion that David and I were talking about.
Okay, but this is also an aesthetic issue, and
yes.
I mean, I think it's good to have this sort of divider. But David, who is paying for this planting? I mean, that's not cheap.
So the plan, according to their plan, they're supposed to come up with glory red maples and little leaf linden trees. That's what they're required to do under their existing plan. There are a couple of little seedlings that I've seen that are planted close to the street, and they don't look like something that's going to stop a lot of noise. So then,
how little are they? How little are the little seedlings? I haven't driven by.
Should we jump to the pictures?
Sure. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so let me try and figure out how to do this here. Okay, so we go back, and we're going to go. Well, we'll come down to. Okay, we'll do the car wash stuff. Start there. Okay, now, oh great, and this guy covers over my ability to hit the right arrow and see the next slide. Okay, so you can see that this is the, wait, can I move this? Yes, I can. All right, so you can see that this is the setup with all of the washers, and they're right along the fence line, right? And you can also, so there's the car wash, and Bailey Building is maybe 95 feet back behind you. You can see a little bit of stonework over on the right-hand side there. If you go a little back towards the front, these are sample saplings, okay? And then this area along here, we have some existing trees and big spaces in between them. So what we just looked at a minute ago was I was standing in one of those spaces there. So you're going to be sitting on the playground and looking back at all this stuff. And Mike's idea was these are the Thule giants. You see how you have a line of like little evergreen trees that you could put in place, and that would provide a physical barrier. And he's talking about if you don't see it, you don't hear it as much. It's like eating with your eyes, the equivalent. Then you could put that in, and I guess they grow at a fairly high rate. And then the question is, who pays for it? And my guess is that if it's on our property, it's us. But we can discuss that, and we can decide whether we want it, and listen. Let them run their stuff with Garrett Duquesne there, and then go stand over by the playground and say, "Can we handle this? Do we really need this barrier? Are we willing to pay for it?" Mike, how expensive are these things? You're muted.
I mean, David, it all depends on the size. I mean, if you get like a 4-foot seedling, it's like,
right. That's what you do. And then it grows 3 feet in the first year.
Yeah.
And that's true. I deal with, personally, I deal with a place online, and let's just say they're $10 a tree. Okay, if it's $10 a tree and you get 10 of them, $100, but I think they're a little bit more, maybe $15, and they're only about, say, 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall, but they grow 3 to 5 feet. Okay, so in 1 year, if it grows 3 feet, the next year it grows 5 feet. By the third year, you already got a 12-foot tree, and of course they get wider. It's just a thought, because I do know, I like these trees. It's a great barrier. It's just a thought. If you said, let's spend $500 in trees, I'll buy $500 a tree. But first we have to ask them, can we plant it on their property? We don't have much dirt on ours. We have maybe 1 foot of dirt from the fence to plant them. We wouldn't have any room to plant them. But it's just a thought. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm sorry, like when you say we don't have a foot, what does that mean? We don't have a foot deep?
If you look
or
at
we
our
don't have-
fence, we only have maybe 1 foot of dirt. Then we have our parking lot. We don't have room to plant the Tule Giants.
But they do. So the question is, if we're willing to pay for the saplings, are they willing to allow them to be on the border of their property? I think Carol Allen has her hand up. Carol, do you want to say something?
Yes, Mr. Warner, I'd like to ask that we move on to the higher priority items that we have on our agenda for tonight. I understand the importance of the buffer, but I think budget and the buildings are higher priority at this time.
All right. So given that, I'm gonna blitz through the pictures.
Well, before we do that, I just do want to say that I think that this is important, and that it would be great if the car wash or the town, or if there was some kind of sharing for something bigger than just 2-foot saplings, which will take forever to grow, because I think it is important for the kids to have this buffer. So I'm done with this topic. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm gonna just really quick cycle through everything I've got, and I don't have that much. And then we'll finish off we'll go back to the agenda and finish off the list. Okay, so. Okay, there's ECP in all its stable light glory. And you can see that this part looks a little better than it should, based upon the wear of the rest of the building. And because they've been working on it. So that's like a highlight they've just been painting on lately. This is the beautiful Highview brand new playground. So it does everything but the kitchen sink. It's musical. It's bilingual. Here's the partially completed Lee F. Jackson playground equipment. It's got the caution tape around it because they didn't finish, so they're going to come back, and we heard about that, right? There's a couple of views of that. There's the 16-foot basketball fence, the cleaned out Riley Pond. It looks really nice. There's another view of that. Here is a sample of the problems that we had with the brick pointing, and the rain would come down and seep in and go into the classrooms. And it's difficult to see from a distance, but if you look at here's an area that's been brick pointed very recently, and here's an area where it was good enough not to brick point. So if you look at the more rosy tint, that things have gotten better. We've been through these slides. You can see the mulch is in. I think there's been some planting at Bailey. This is the freezer. Mike, you want to talk about the freezer? You're muted.
They just completed the new freezer. I know he's waiting for a delivery. That's the new freezer they just installed Saturday, Monday they worked on it, Tuesday they worked on it. The other freezer kept on going down, the inside freezer. Not only that, but it's an old masonry block freezer. Wasn't efficient at all. It was also water cooled, so it was using a lot of water, street water, in order to cool it.
Okay, and now this is in the back of Woodlands. Okay, and then the last thing is, of course, we're demolishing the caretaker's house. And you can see it's not solid on its foundation. You see how much it's tilted?
Well, the asbestos, that trailer's not there anymore. They finished the asbestos. I already have the clearance. The clearance is cleared. It's all set to be taken down. The only thing that we're waiting on right now is Con Ed to disconnect the wires to the house. Once they finish disconnecting the wires to the house, I'm trying to get a hold of them to speed it up as well. Once that's disconnected, they'll go ahead and proceed to knock it down.
And that's it, I believe. And that brings us to,
Wait, David, sorry.
Yeah.
At Woodlands, I see what's here about Woodlands, no new issues. Can I just ask a few questions? What's the work that's going on over near the soccer field?
Okay, so what, the Department of Health, DEC, it has to monitor it because those are 2 designated landfills. I don't know what year it was, but obviously you had landfill.
2006.
What was that?
2006.
2006, you had landfill near the football field, and then you had landfill where the soccer field is. So yes, every year they come over and they inspect those 2 areas. This year they said we want to monitor the underground water. So what they did was they have 3 places at the football field and 2 places at the soccer field. What they do is they drill down, I think it's 10 feet at a time. They get core samples, they sample the cores, then they go down again. They go down until they hit water. Once they hit water, they put they're called testing wells. Okay, so monitoring wells, that's it. So they will come by probably once a year, who knows, maybe twice a year to monitor water to see if there's any contaminant. I will say there was no smell, there was no contamination that they saw when they were taking the core samples out at that time. Of course, they want to send it to the lab to see if there's anything else, but for the most part, all those core samples that were coming up clean.
That's good. Okay, great. And one other, that's good news. One other thing about Woodlands area, well, Woodlands adjacent, we've been talking for a long time about the neighbors. I'm wondering what the status is on the survey. I think that's where we were the last time we discussed it, that a survey had to be done.
The surveyors are still on the premises. In fact, they were there today. They didn't finish everything yet. I think they're working on the aerial view. There's many parts to a survey that most people don't know. It's not cut and dry and just put stakes around. Okay, they have to do a lot of research. They have to do aerial views, and they're gonna probably, hopefully get it together soon, because I asked them to give me an update on it, and then they will give us where all the encroachments on our property areas.
So once we, just so I understand, then once we have that report from them, maybe a board member can explain, is that when the board needs to make a decision on whether to send a letter or whatever the next step would be? If we find violations?
We go back and ask legal advice on what to do. The important thing was that we not target anybody, that we not play favorites. Oh, we're enforcing it for this border here, but not for that border over there. So we have to be consistent in what we do, thus the need for the survey, and then we take action in a unified fashion.
So ideally, we're getting that report before the end of the school year so we can move forward on this, since we've been discussing it for quite a while.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we're good. Any other questions? Moving on to finance. Okay, Lisa Raymond, take it away.
Okay, Laser, could you put up the presentation? Okay, thank you. So we're going to begin the proposed 2021-22 budget presentation with revenues so that we can explain where the money is coming from. Next slide, Laser.
Just wait before you go. We're going to go through the budget presentation, then we'll go for the line-by-line documents that were on Google Docs after we do this. Go ahead.
Okay. As you can see, we're expecting $5,580,208 in state aid, which is a $625,918 more than was budgeted for this school year. This additional aid has resulted in decreasing the proposed tax levy, which during draft 2 had come in at 1.98% increase to now a 1.24% increase, for a tax levy of $62,453,090. We're proposing a budget of new money of $73,182, which is a 2.59 increase over this school year. In order to use money in the capital fund that was designated for different projects that have either been completed or set aside for future projects, we now need to transfer these monies back to the general fund and repurpose them specifically for the capital construction phase 1. The following amounts are in the capital fund that will be transferred back to the general fund to be repurposed for phase 1 proposed project. As was stated in the public hearing on Tuesday night, the repair reserve is designed for needed repairs in the district. In the phase 1 project, $357,500 was identified as repairs. These funds will be transferred to the general fund and classified as an interfund transfer to help fund phase 1. In the 2018-19 school year, there was excess fund balance over the 4% allowed by law. That was categorized as assigned for future capital projects. The remaining money of $1,472,243 will be put in the capital fund to help fund phase 1. In the 2019-20 external audit, it was noted that there were 6 projects that were completed in the capital fund. These funds were earmarked for campus consolidation, Woodlands public address system, fire alarms, emergency boiler work, and water main work. Since these projects are completed, any excess funds must be returned to the general fund. This totals $328,424. In the 2019-20 and 2020-21 budget process, interfund capital transfer money was budgeted for future projects. The balance from the 19-20 year of $1,300,000 and the remainder after building the playgrounds of $1,001,170 from 2021 are being brought back to the general fund for phase 1. So the totals of all these monies that we are bringing back from the capital fund is $4,459,337. We will then transfer these funds to the general fund and put them in appropriated fund balance on the revenue side, meaning it is being recategorized and earmarked to help fund the project. These monies will not impact the tax levy since they have already been part of previous budgets. In order to be transparent, though, we need to increase appropriated fund balance on the revenue side, and on the expenditure side, it will be classified as transfer to capital, so the two will cancel each other out. So the proposed budget to the taxpayers will be $77,459,519. But again, the $4.45 million has already been part of past budgets. It's just a mechanism that we have to do by education law to bring it back to the general fund, recategorize it, and then put it right back to the capital fund under a sub-fund titled Capital Construction Phase 1. Also is not listed here is the additional money that the district will be getting for the American Rescue Plan and the Emergency Relief Fund of $2,971,802. The reason it is not budgeted on the revenue side is because the government, the state and the federal government have said that these monies must be placed in the federal funds and accounted for there. So I'm just listing it here as a footnote to let you know what we're getting, but that it's not going to be in the general fund. It'll be classified in the federal funds. Next slide, Laser. So the major expenses that are listed here are by category, and they are salary and benefits, which represent the largest expense in any school budget. For Greenburgh, this is a little more than 70%, followed by transportation, operations and maintenance, and BOCES. And then there are other categories such as supplies, textbooks, equipment, tuition, contractual items, debt service, and interfund transfers. And as was shown on the revenue side, you see here where I've budgeted for the capital interfund transfer for the same dollar amount of $4,459,337, so that both sides will balance. Next, please. This next slide shows the major expenses by function. There are 6 functions represented here: general support, total instruction, pupil transportation, employee benefits, debt service, and interfund transfers. And I put just the interfund transfers that are new in this budget, which is $1,725,000, which encompasses money that will be transferred to the federal funds and money that will be transferred to the capital funds. And then I list the repurposed money. Next, please. So breaking down these functions, we start with general support. This is the portion of the budget where expenses are listed for the Board of Education, which includes the board, includes the district clerk, and includes the district meeting, which is also known as the budget vote. It also includes central administration, which is the superintendent's office and all of the business functions, operation and maintenance of all of our campuses, central data processing, and special items, which include legal services, BOCES administrative costs, records management, public information, judgments and claims, refunds of property taxes, and school association dues are all budgeted here. Under all of the functions, what are budgeted in these categories are for salaries, equipment, contractual expenses, supplies and materials, and BOCES. You will see that the general support for next year will be decreasing by 0.55%. Next. The next function is instruction, which is the largest of all the functions. It includes administration, which is the principals and directors and their offices, curriculum development and professional development, regular instruction, special education services, instructional support, and pupil personnel, which all include library, technology, occupational therapy, speech therapy, education TV, attendance, guidance, health services, psychologists, social workers, extracurricular activities, and athletics. In addition to those items that I had just listed, such as salaries, equipment, supplies and materials, and contractual items, this section also includes textbooks, software, hardware, health and welfare services, and tuition. You can see by the footnote that we are including an additional math specialist, an occupational therapist, a high school science teacher, and a secretary. And included in this item also would be any contractual salary adjustments. We're proposing an increase to the instruction portion of 3.63%. Next. Transportation is the next function, which includes all transportation expenses for district and contracted services. District expenses include our Director of Transportation and his office, our routing software that we use, any equipment that is needed, and fuel purchases. Contractual is for the services provided by Royal Coach to transport our students to each of our campuses, and for transportation of students attending one of approximately 47 other schools that they attend outside of the district. The proposed budget here is a 4.85% increase, which also includes the estimated CPI for May, which will be released in June, to which transportation costs, contract costs can increase. Next.
Let me ask you, I assume that almost the entire increase in contract transportation, is that contractually dictated? Is there any effect of reduced usage this year that would tend to make that increase slightly larger if we go back to normal transportation next year? Why is it 5.2%? Yeah.
This, what Frank has done for contract transportation is assuming that we are back in full mode.
Right.
And that we are also now going, transporting back to ECP, where we were saving when they were going to high.
I think we lost her.
Lisa.
Okay, so Lisa's gonna have to get off and come back on, and that's a laser alert function. There you
Is
go.
for- Yep. The
Go
next is for employee benefits. This is the second largest of the functions. Benefits here included are for retirement expenses for administrators, teachers, and support staff. These are based on annual salaries, and a percentage is determined by the employee retirement system and the teacher's retirement system each year on the increase to those salaries. Currently, for this school year in the 2020-2021, for example, TRS came in at 9.53%, and they are telling us to budget next year for anywhere between 9.8 to 10%. They haven't released the final percentage yet. Also included here are the employee share of Social Security, workers' compensation insurance, life insurance, unemployment insurance, disability, health and dental, and union welfare monies that we are obligated to pay under contractual agreements. So the employee benefits are expected to increase by 3.72%. Okay. And then the last function is the debt and interfund transfers. We are budgeting for a tax anticipation note in case we need to take one during tax collection. Transfers to federal funds will remain the same at $425,000. There will be nothing budgeted for transfer to debt service since we've made our last payment in February for any debt service that we've had. And the transfer to capital, which is new money of $1.3 million, will be added to the money that is being recategorized to help fund phase one. So all in total, debt and interfund transfers has decreased almost 18%, and that is mainly due because we have finished our debt service. Next, Laser. So what will be done with the 1.3 million? As I said, this 1.3 million will become part of phase one and be combined with the $4.459 million previously spoken about, so that there will be $5,759,337 available. I've listed here from BBS's presentation of March 16th things that would be done during the capital project phase one, of which the 1.3 million will be a part of. Next. There will also be a separate referendum proposition at the budget vote to allow excess funds to be placed in the repair reserve. Next slide, please. This will be no additional cost to the taxpayers, because what we are asking the taxpayers to allow us to do is anything that is over the 4% fund balance from the 2020-2021 school year be placed in the repair reserve for any future projects. Next. So what would the impact be to the taxpayers? We are proposing a levy of $62,453,090. As of March 9th, 2021, the assessment for our town was just under $4 billion for a tax rate per 1,000 of $15.98, which would be a 5-cent increase from this school year. So on an average assessment of $495,600 property, it would be approximately a $23.50 increase in taxes. Next, Laser.
Let me ask you a question, and we may have to go back to the town for this. Do we know on average how much home values have increased over the last year?
That I do not know. I'd have to ask the town.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next slide, Laser. So to just recap everything, we are staying under the tax cap. We're proposing a budget of new money of $73,182,000, and to that, we are adding the reclassified capital money of $4,459,337 for a total budget of $77,459,519. The tax levy that we are proposing also is a 1.24% over this school year. Next. A contingent budget. If there were to be a contingent budget, the tax levy cannot increase any greater than it is this school year. That would mean we would have to go back to $61,689,027, which would be a decrease of $764,063. In a contingent budget, all non-contingent items must be removed, and that includes most equipment, rental of any office equipment, any salary increases that are not covered by a collective bargaining unit, and capital interfund transfers. So a contingent budget would be $70,996,105.
I have a question, but I think Tanya needs to go first. Tanya?
Lisa, if you need to finish your presentation first, but then I do have a question.
No,
Thanks, Dave.
go right ahead.
Okay, so my question is, I'm still a little fuzzy, and I'm maybe wrongly assuming that the rest of our community is, in terms of which part of our 21-22 budget is going to be actually rolled into this phase 1 project that we are approving.
Okay, so in order to get the money back from the capital fund, right? I had to ask the board to do resolutions to bring that money back.
Right.
Recategorizing it so that it can go back to the capital fund, and it will go back to the capital fund when the budget is approved. Along with that 4.45 million, the additional 1.3 of new money will also go to the capital fund.
Come from the new budget.
Correct.
So
it's that 5,759,000.
Right. So I think it's David, I think it's really important to drive this particular message home, that essentially, Lisa, our entire increase, right, or thereabout for this year, this board is really setting it aside or really funneling it into repairs, much needed repairs.
Correct.
And I think that's a very, very important message to get across, right? That we're not just kind of facetiously increasing the budget. We're actually using this increase for these really extremely necessary repairs.
Correct. And that's why in these budget presentations, in our budget brochures, in the budget notice postcard, it is clearly defined that these monies are for capital construction phase 1. It can't be used for anything else.
Right. Okay.
It has to be used for that, and it's earmarked for that.
Got it. Okay. I just want to make that completely transparent.
Correct. Yep. You got it.
Carol?
I think it is also important that we drive home the point that this $5 million increase is not being based on an increased tax rate this year.
Correct.
It is money that is already in the coffers.
Correct.
It has been sitting there.
Ms. Allen, let me correct you just for 1 minute. The 5 million is not 1.3 is new money. The 4.45 is old money, so to say. So the 4.45 is doing nothing to taxes, absolutely nothing.
And that is critical, because if people see the budget going from 71 to 77, they're going to immediately think my taxes are going up.
Correct. And
So
let me tell you what I've done. Aside from this presentation, which will be on the webpage, on the budget notice postcard, you're going to notice that the very first thing you see is a banner that addresses this, and in big bold letters, and we're trying to see if we can put it in a different color or highlight it. It says no impact to taxes, so that people, just trying to keep reiterating that point that this is going to be, this 4.45 of the 77 million has no impact to the taxes at all.
Absolutely.
We're still going to get a lot of questions, however, because the town just sent out property reassessment notices to everybody. And the entire town is up in arms because their assessed values have gone up or are going up. And they are therefore assuming that their taxes are going up. So we have to be exceedingly careful with our wording so that they realize that their school taxes are only going up approximately $25 a year.
Yeah.
If we don't make that message exceedingly clear, we're going to have trouble getting this budget approved.
Well, I plan on being at the budget vote in case anybody has any questions. Ivy Kraus has asked me if I would be available to answer any questions that anybody has, and I have no problem being there. I was also thinking of doing poster boards that try to explain it as simply as I can to drive exactly your message across, that this is going to have no impact on the taxes.
People need to hear that before they decide they're coming out to vote, because when they come out to the polls, they've already decided how they're going to vote.
Okay. And we can address that in the budget newsletter, which I'm working with the company right now on the wording. So I will definitely make sure that we get that point across simply.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris?
Yes, I want to second everything that both Carol and Tanya have said. I also have gotten messages from people wondering why it's gone from 71 in draft 1 to 77. I just also like to point out that this committee is a good workshop to test the effectiveness of the postcards, for example. So in the future, I would appreciate just getting a heads up so we can give some feedback on how it might be seen by the community. We've all been discussing these issues. We can read through the detail, but I mean,
Yes.
for someone
And you
something,
know what, Chris, they haven't been finalized yet. I can definitely get a copy of that to David, and he could post it for everybody to look at and for everybody to, comment or make suggestions on the wording. I could definitely do that.
Okay. Yeah, just
Okay.
thank you.
Sounds like a plan. All right.
Okay, so then
how about
the next two slides are just a reminder that May 4th is the budget hearing, and that's at 6:30 at the board's workshop, and May 18th is the budget vote from 7 to 9 at the Woodlands Middle High School, which right now everything is still in person for voting.
Okay, very good. So now, assuming we've answered all the questions at the high level, so then that leaves the appropriation status report. I think that's the primary one. There's the draft revenue report if you want to go over that for a little bit, but the appropriation status report is the primary. Can we bring that up?
Could I ask one more question before we move on?
Sure.
You mentioned federal funds. Items would be part of federal funds. Could you give us an explanation of how that works, please?
Sure. Each school there are different funds where you account for money. The general fund is the largest of all of the funds, and that is what the taxpayers vote on. Then you can apply for money through New York State for federal monies, and those are like Title I, Title II, and they go all the way up to Title V. Then there's Section 611, 619, My Brother's Keeper, Head Start, the ECP program, things like that. So anytime that the federal government is giving a state money, it has to go through the federal funds, because you're not only being held accountable to the state for this money, you're also being held accountable to the federal government. So because the American Rescue money and the emergency monies are coming from the federal government, part of the guidelines are that they have to be accounted for in the federal funds now, so that once the application is approved, then the state and the federal government will know where we are spending the money and how we are spending that money, and they will hold us accountable for that spending.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So it also included, David did put up the revenue status draft report for 21-22 that compares to 2020, 2021. That is the smaller of the two documents, because as you know, where schools get their revenue from is limited. So the largest of all of our revenue sources is our real property taxes, and then that is followed by state aid, okay, that we get. And then we have other smaller sources. We can use appropriated fund balance if we have any, and that's where we are accounting for the transfer from the capital fund is in those monies, as along with $2 million that we plan on using from this year's budget to help balance the budget. And then you have your rental income, you have interest income, tuition that we bill, sales tax that we collect from Westchester, and payments in lieu of taxes from those companies who have made those agreements with the county of Westchester.
Chris has her hand up.
Sorry, thank you. So I'm just looking at the rental of real property. It's only $50,000, but is that a conversation that's already been had about whether we're opening up our buildings to use by third parties next year?
That does include some rental of our facility, yes. We have, it's not open completely. As you know, they just approved that summer camp can be used. That's in anticipation if we are available to begin renting out spaces again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then the other larger of the two packets is the actual proposed budget, and that goes by category. I really don't, I mean, unless, I don't know how you want me to go through this, David.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Yeah, go ahead.
So actually, my suggestion is really not to go through it, because I think that this is really up to taxpayers to look at. However, I remember a question that Katie, who I'm glad is here, asked at our board meeting about the budget being set in stone, and I think it's important for the taxpayers to understand that we come up with a budget every year that is kind of an idealized budget. And at the end of the day, anyone who follows board meetings knows that we have a very large amount of what we call budget transfers occur throughout the year that really then respond to our specific needs as we go through the year. So we have a budget, right? And we idealize it, but at the end of the day, it's a flexible construct that is responsive to the particular needs of our district as we progress through a school year. So
correct. So yeah. Basically, Tanya, to also add to what you're saying, is a budget is an estimate of what we're going to spend and an estimate of what we anticipate we're going to collect. What we're asking the taxpayers is that we're proposing this budget and we cannot go over that dollar amount.
Right.
Okay,
right.
We can stay underneath it, which we try to, and we try to do as much as we can. We cannot exceed what the dollar amount is that we've asked the taxpayers to vote on.
Right, and furthermore, I just want to add that last year, and I think this year as well, we're going to have
a surplus.
A surplus, right, that we will ask the taxpayers to attribute to our, I don't know which fund, right?
Repair reserve.
To our repair reserve. So it's you know, it's really, I think we've done a pretty good job of, you know, kind of defining rationally the confines and also telling our community that whatever is left over, we are actually going to use it for really our much needed repairs. So right. I think that's a very fair way of pitching the whole thing.
Right. Second.
I would say that I actually do have a question or two on a couple of different pages on this budget. I don't know if anyone else has shown up here with a list of things they're interested in, but I'd at least like us to go over, what the headings are, how the budget one budget year compares to another year, and then I want to, just as a sample, I want to show you the thing that I was interested in.
Sure.
Finding
Okay.
out about. Can we bring up that document?
I can't.
Which
Yeah,
document?
I can bring it up if we need to, or Laser can. I don't care who does it.
Right.
Which document?
The budget appropriation status report. There we go. Okay, so by way of all right. So first, can you explain the column headings? Can you make it a little bigger? Okay, I guess that's as good as that gets. There you go. Okay.
All right, so the column headings are, the first is the account codes, and these are what are called uniform system of account codes. All school districts use these, at least these first four numbers. So for example, all school districts Board of Education expenses are under an A. A signifies the general fund, and they're under 1010 codes, okay? And then you'll see the next set of numbers are either are specific to the category, such as 200 is for equipment, 400 is for contractual items, 450s and 460 codes are for supplies and materials, 470 codes are tuition, 480 is textbook, and 490 is BOCES, okay? Then the next set of numbers are you can use to designate if you have multiple buildings, such as we do, okay? So a 01 is for what we consider administration. Bailey School has their own number, Highview, LF Jackson, they all have their own. So if you see a 01, 02, 03, 4, 5, 6, you'll know what school that comes from, okay? Then the next column is the description. It tells you what code it's being budgeted. Okay, so for example, these are all Board of Education expenses, but then after that, it's going to tell you if it's contractual, what it's for. A contractual item, printing, postage, travel and conferences, such as that. Then the next is what was budgeted for the 2021 school year. I'm sorry, what we're proposing for 21-22, then what was budgeted for 2021, what the dollar change is, and then what that percentage is, okay? And then you'll see that it is broken out by these uniform system of account codes, okay? So Board of Education, district clerk always follows that, then the district meeting, superintendent's office, followed by the business office, and so on, and it just keeps going all the way down. So the codes start in the 1000s and they end in the 9000s, okay? Doesn't necessarily mean every school has to use every code or every category, but it's set up that you can, and it's available for you to use. You will see, I have to say, throughout this budget that you're going to see some line items, possibly in salaries, that kind of look really skewed, and I can tell you why. The Office of the State Comptroller and the New York State Education Department over the last couple years have come up with transparency funding, which is not only do we have to file over the summer for state aid purposes, we have to have our external audit, and we have to do all of these state aid forms. We also have to do transparency reporting. And that transparency reporting is very specific, and it's by school building. And what that entailed was they wanted to make sure, so for example, in Greenburgh, they want to make sure that what we are spending per child in each one of our elementary schools equals or is very close to what the other is spending. And if it isn't, then the state will come down, and when they give you their report, they'll say you spent more money per student, let's say at RJ Bailey, than you did at LF Jackson. That could be seen as a disadvantage to the students at LF Jackson. How are you going to solve it? So what we had to do previously, I didn't do this, this was done prior to me coming in December, but was break down these codes even further so that we could identify and place salaries in the proper codes. Okay, so if we, for example, share a staff member that goes between buildings, we had to break out their salary instead of just saying, oh, I'm just going to budget them in this school. We couldn't do that because we had to actually try to get it broken down as close as possible to what was being spent in each building for a per pupil expense.
So I'm thinking that the question I had may be answered by the explanation you just gave. So first of all, I'm going to jump back to let's look at the first line here of what I normally look for. So we have the 2021 budget as it has been this year. We have what we're projecting for next year, and then we have a dollar amount change, and we have a percentage change. So on the first line, I look and the first thing I look for is I tend to look along the percentage line of changes, and if the change percentage is large and it's positive, that is, if it was in parentheses, it went down. If it's not in parentheses, it went up. And then the second thing I look at is how big is the amount of the change. So something could look huge percentage wise, but if it's a small amount of money, then my level of concern, well, it's not zero, is not as great as if it's both a large percentage of change and a large amount of money. So I'm looking here, so Board of Education contract expenditure, right? So I look and I say, oh my God, it's gone up by 100%. But then I look and I say, okay, the change is $1,500. I only had $1,500 in this budget category. It's a small category. Okay, my blood pressure goes down a little bit. And then I say, okay, why the extra $1,500? And in this case, it happens to be that we have a 5-year plan. The 5-year plan is about up. So we're in year 5, and we're going to hire a consultant to come in and help us with our 5-year plan. So we need some money laid aside to set up the next 5-year plan, and that's where the $1,500 comes from. So I go out and I get that explanation, and in 9 cases out of 10, you'll get an explanation, and that'll be that. Once in a while, you'll find something that maybe you think should be different, and then we can move money around or discuss moving it around if that's the case. So I have one question, and Laser, do you know a way to get to page 17 of this document? Okay, so close to the top of page 17, there's teaching regular school, RJ Bailey, arts and music.
Could you, David, give me the code? Oh, so you're in the 2110.
2110-12006-0001. Do we have to scroll up a little bit to get to it? Oh, there it is. Top line right there. Okay, I look and it's gone up by 229%, and the amount of change is $185,000. And so I say, okay, that could be important. Can you tell me why it is that the teaching for regular school, RJ Bailey, arts and music has gone up like that? Is that a shift in headcount? Is that a shift in how we account for things? Do we have an answer to that?
Yes. So for the 2021-22 school year, there are 3 people budgeted there. Okay, and then in the, hold on a second, I have to consult a different page or a different document. 2110, 120, 12110, 12006, 001, 2110, 001. No, there were only two teachers budgeted there. last year. So there was a shift, there was one teacher budgeted that there was a shifting of positions.
Okay. And do we know why? Or do you need to go back to
I'd have to
administration
find out, yeah.
why? Okay. So so that's a story. So take the note on that and get back to me on
Yes.
on what that personnel shift looks like. Okay,
Sure,
so that
sure.
was my sample question. Does anybody else have questions from this budget document?
Similarly, on that same page, there is a decrease of $672,000 for teacher salaries K to 6 at Bailey.
Aha.
Can you give me the code?
2110 .120-06 -0000.
0000.
It's the line above it.
Oh, okay. And again, it has to do with shifting of salaries. And again, as I said, you're going to see where there is a large, as we're talking about this code, there's a large decrease, but then you're going to see a large increase in another code. And I really have to go back and discuss with, Dr. Chase and Dr. Reynolds and possibly the principals, because that all happened prior to me and I don't know the history behind it.
If I may, if you go down, further down on that same page, they may have been shifted into specific function of reading and literacy.
Right, exactly, very much so. And I think that's what they were, when the transparency came about, I think they were trying to break it down even further instead of just saying, here's the elementary teachers, let me put it in this code. They started to break it down by literacy, ESL, whatever it is those teachers were teaching.
Okay. So we need Reynolds, basically. All right, so you can come back with answers to that.
Yes.
Do other people have other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Surely.
I think you raise a very valid point about when you see large increases in the budget, that it needs an explanation. That requires a tremendous amount of work on Ms. Reynolds, but that is something that can be done if you start from the beginning. If the building supervisors are making up their budget, they see things that are a large change, they could just put a note, increase in staff number, no large explanation. So as the budget is rolled up to the top, then you're able to incorporate that into the budget, and those other areas that Mrs. Raymond sees that she has control over, then she could put a footnote against those. So the entire budget will have footnotes against these large changes, because when you see a large change, is a very valid point you made, David. It is. Two other points had very little financial impact, but it could in the future. And the one was about the screening of the trees. In this particular case, it's not much money, okay? But in other cases, it might amount to a significant amount of money. We have schools that other locations off campus that you might have construction, and it might be a big issue of buffering, and it will cost a lot of dollars. The basic premise, when we approve that site, because I'm on the planning board, we approve that site, we put in the buffering for the school. Now, it is the car wash's responsibility for the buffering. And if you think it's inadequate, when you meet with the commissioner, you said, yes, the planning board put this in, but now that we see it, we feel that it does not meet our needs, and the car wash should put in additional Street. Don't even think about opening up your pocketbook for that. That's the responsibility of the car wash. They have to do it. And another strong argument you have, or we have, is that you don't have space for it in your side anyhow. But under no circumstances should you pay. The other item, which is a minor cost, but it's a certain, I think, a philosophy. I know politically, might not look good that you pay for conferences for staff, but long term, that is how you're interacting with other professionals and getting ideas. That's very good for the growth and the professional development of staff. So in the future, we just have to think about it and don't, in the future, make it a robotic operation. We just remove it because it could have long-term consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. All right. Other questions? Okay. So then I'm going to return to the agenda. You all have the document. I will tell you that we have an additional, let's see. Opportunity. If you just started looking at this thing, there's a CEC meeting, which I believe is scheduled for Monday, and it's dedicated. Let me bring up the agenda here. And it's dedicated to nothing but going over this budget in depth and detail, because it is a tradition in Greenburgh Central, though it is has been done less often of late, to go over the budget in some detail, and some people have concerns that need to be addressed at that level. So let's see, the CEC budget review meeting is Monday, 4/26 at 7:30 p.m. The one and only thing that they plan to cover is exactly this, the budget and what's concerned with that budget. So if you weren't able to participate in this meeting and want to get in on that next one, that's there for you. As Lisa already said, the budget hearing is May 4th at 6:30 p.m. The budget vote will be in person this year instead of being full remote, or at least that's the plan at the moment. On May 18th, polls are open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in Woodlands Middle High School. I'm not sure what's going to happen with if we start making classrooms out of the gym, if that's going to be a conflict, but I will go and check on that. Then budget information is available on the district website. There's a budget menu item, and under it is a budget listing for each year. So just look for 2021, 2022 budget information, and the budget presentation you saw tonight, and the underlying line by line, at least the on the expenditure side document is there. In terms of scheduling our next meeting, well, first, before I go forward, are there any other questions?
I think Chris has a question. I see her hand up. I don't know if that's from before.
Okay.
And Katie.
Sorry, it's just a point. Since we're the Community Engagement and Communications Committee, I first want to thank Tracy Maris for sending information out to the committee about that meeting on Monday. I would appreciate if somehow we could post that information on our social media. It hasn't been posted on Facebook yet. It is on the front page of the website, but I think it'd be, if we're trying to reach out to the public for their participation, if we could put the word out a little bit more, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen.
Those are Katie and Carol Allen that seem to have questions.
Okay. Katie first. You're muted.
We can't hear you.
Katie. We cannot hear you. One moment.
David, maybe you can move to Carol while Katie works out her issues.
I have a quick question, please.
Go ahead, Carol.
What format is being used for the budget review meeting and the budget hearing? Are they going to be Zooms that anyone will be able to dial in?
I believe so. I think we talked about whether we were going to have anything in person, and we decided against it. So yes.
Okay, because.
And we did this, I think we did something very similar to this last year.
Right, but I just want a clarification. Do people have to sign up in advance? Are we going to have to send in emails, or will we be able to get in quickly? Let's say, 5 o'clock, I realize the meeting starts at 6:30. Am I going to be able to get in on a Zoom?
I believe that what we should do, let's see, there's before we got Zoom bombed and there's after we got Zoom bombed, right? I believe what we did before we got Zoom bombed is we just posted the link on the district website and anybody and everybody could come in. I guess I'll have to check on that and get back to you, but I think access is probably the most important thing at this point. And we just have to be ready in case something bad happens to get the people off as quickly as possible.
David, the budget letter is mailed to every household?
The newsletter, yes.
Yes, okay.
Once in a while, if you're in an apartment complex, people claim they don't get it because, but that's about a postal delivery issue, and we keep pushing back on that. But yes, we do mail something out to every household in the district.
Right. So I think that this year, going back to Carol's point earlier, and Lisa working out the presentation, I think the presentation of the budget is perhaps more important than ever because of this transfer and that people don't think it's 77 million and all of that. So
yes. Yes.
And
Okay.
Katie's question was, will there be any other administrators at the CEC meeting? And yes, Katie, Dr. Reynolds will also be at that meeting with me.
So the missing link on the content side will be there.
Thank you.
Great.
now we can hear you.
Yeah, I needed my earbuds.
Okay.
And I think Ashley has a question,
Ashley
David.
has a
Ashley?
All right, thank you. 2 questions. One, are we going to do a separate weekend finance and facilities committee meeting like we did last year to just give folks an opportunity to see the budget again on the weekend the way we did last time? Are we doing that? Are we planning to do that?
We are about to schedule another finance and facilities committee meeting. So when would you like to schedule that?
I don't have a preference. I just know that last year we did it on the weekend and we got a lot of people that joined that I haven't seen in the past. So in the interest of making our message clear and getting it out there as much as possible, I think we should try to push for a weekend.
So you're looking for a Saturday?
Is that what we did last year? I think it was a Saturday, right? So probably another Saturday and maybe the same time frame. Not at dinner and not at lunchtime, somewhere in the middle, maybe, if that's what we did last time.
Let's see. It needs to happen prior to the 18th of May, and it needs to be on a Saturday. So it is now the 22nd. We're probably not going to do it this Saturday because we have the CEC meeting on Monday, right? We could do the 1st of May, which is National School Principals Day. For some reason.
Can we do it, David? Like, hold on a second. I just need to pull out my calendar.
Or we could do the 8th.
Could I point out last year when we had that Saturday meeting, the budget had not yet been approved by the board? And apparently it has been approved by the board already and you're merely presenting it. So there's really no opportunity to make changes at this point.
You actually can change you can easily change how the budget is allocated. That is, if you find something that you say, we're spending too much money on this, can we do things a different way? And then what will happen is we'll probably go back to the administration and say, hey, now we have an extra $200,000 we didn't have before. What is the best way to reallocate these funds? And then the overall amount of the budget would remain the same, but how things are divided up would change. That we can still do relatively easily. If we find something huge and horrible that needs to be corrected, I mean, then that would have obviously an effect on the budget schedule. But the other stuff we can do.
So Well, I can tell you I can't do the weekend of the 1st and the 2nd, so I'm out for that, but I'm.
So you want the 8th?
I'm good with the 8th, yes.
All right, what's a good time?
Anytime.
Not 7 a.m.
I'm good with 7 a.m., but I'm not sure the rest of the community.
We're asking people to spend their weekends, and I assume we're asking Lisa to spend her weekend. So Lisa, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, you just tell me the day and the time. I don't know what an opportune time is. I mean, I agree with Ashley, don't do it around lunchtime or dinner time, but
10 a.m. is probably good.
10 a.m. Great. The 8th at 10 a.m. I will post that. Anybody disagree? All right, and that is
I'm sorry, 10 a.m. on the 8th.
Budget.
Just okay.
Go ahead.
All right.
All right. So do we have any other concerns?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I couldn't get to the hand. I just wanted an update. I read on the agenda, and maybe we discussed and I missed it, about the roof at the mansion. It was just approved today. No, yesterday.
Yesterday.
A little.
Fred, you want to talk about that?
Yes, if you scroll up a little bit, there's 2 items. There's the vestibule as well as the mansion. So we got notice from the State Education Department yesterday that we received approval on the mansion roof. So I have reached out to Michael and Lisa to discuss timeframes and bidding on that and how we want to do that. So we are in the process of making that happen. And then the other one that we had on there was just the high school security vestibule. We are done with the design on that. Everything's all set. We're just waiting for Carlos Ramirez to get back to us with the Smart Schools funding so that we can put that information on the application and then send the project up to the State Education Department.
And we talked about that a little bit at the last Safety and Technology Committee meeting. Ashley, do you want to say a word or two?
Sure. Long and short was, Carlos, we kind of just brought him in right now at the tail end of things. So he's working aggressively as quickly as he can to try to get everything, all the documentation updated with the latest information. Freddie's obviously reaching out to you to get the figures updated for the quotes and all that. And he's going to be working to push that through as quickly as possible so that we can take advantage of that. That's all.
Okay. And the and skipping back to the mansion roof project, is any funding from that coming out of the repair reserve fund?
That was my next question. Sorry.
Lisa?
we will have to see what is repairs, what classifies as repairs that can come out of the repair reserve.
Okay. And if money is coming out of the repair reserve fund, then that will require another hearing.
Yes.
Even though the board has actually approved the project, if we change the funding source, we may have some more hoops to jump
Yes,
through.
you have to do
So
another hearing.
We'll get back to you on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So sorry, so we're just related to that. At the next meeting, not the one about the budget, but the next regular Finance and Facilities Committee meeting, can we just have another update on what monies are in the different reserve pots and what they're allocated for? Just an update on the spreadsheets you've been giving us throughout the year. Thank you.
Sure. Amounts at next non-budget. Okay. Meeting. Okay, very good. Are there other concerns? Anybody? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,